welcome everybody for the latest edition of the BizEquity podcast series. My name is Kevin Saad, Senior Director of Customer Success here at BizEquity. I'm honored to be joined today on our first edition of the podcast in 2026 with longtime BizEquity partner, Mark Dorman. And Mark is a recognized industry leader working with the small and mid-sized businesses across the United States and based out of Ohio. In addition to being a certified exit planner and family business specialist, he's counseled more than 100 privately held businesses across the U.S. In his career spanning more than 35 plus years in the industry. So in addition to be a published author of numerous ebooks on exit planning and hosting his own podcast, Finish Big, he's been a great partner of ours for many years and is the president and managing director of Succession Plus USA. So Mark, it's a pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm delighted, honored to be here. A huge BizEquity fan. Look forward to the show.
Absolutely. It means a lot to us. And I know we go way back, like you said, being a huge fan and partner of ours through many years, which we greatly appreciate. A lot of great stories in terms of utilizing our platform and the great success that you've had with your firm and the growth over the years. So
Yes.
Looking forward to diving a little bit into that. Just a lot of other discussions too for today's episode in regards to where we see the space going, trends, and things on the horizon for 26 and beyond. So, Mark, I guess to kick us off and get started, just maybe tell the audience out there a little bit more about Succession Plus in terms of your current venture and specifically how BizEquity aligns with your use case and how you're going to market.
Yeah, so we use BizEquity, and thank you again for the introduction and the kind words. As you mentioned, I've been in the industry. I'm 60, so I've been in the industry since I was 22. I think it's important to just kind of give you some background on, really how I got into working with business owners. I was fortunate when I came out of college. I had played college golf, and I had met a gentleman while playing practice rounds that happened to be with John Hancock. And I said, how can you be out here, at 2:00 in the afternoon with us playing golf? And he says, well, I'm in the financial services business, which at that time was really more life insurance focused. So it just kind of piqued my interest. And then I was talking to a friend of mine at school, and he was doing an internship down at New England Financial, which was formerly New England Life, based out of Boston. And that's no longer around. It was acquired by MetLife. But I, too, got an internship at that agency. And it was just a pivotal point at a very young age because every individual producer, the men and women that were working at that agency, and it was a big agency. I mean, it was the largest insurance agency of any company, largest general agency of any company between New York and LA, anywhere in the country. They were all in the business insurance marketplace. So I quickly learned at a young age, just working with older producers such as myself now, that the business market it's a thriving marketplace. It's very dynamic. Business owners make great clients. So I immediately just try to focus my energy on daytime activity and quickly started calling on really mom and pop and Main Street companies because nobody else did, and built a really nice client base. And then as I got older, I just got into larger and larger and larger companies. And then about 18 years ago, I got heavily into the exit planning space. And I started, I was dabbling in it initially, but then I actually had a big falling out with my business partner at the time. And I exited that business. And when I kind of stood back from the canvas and said, okay, well, what do you want to do? So the balance of your career, it was, again, working only in the business market, but really thought that there was a tremendous opportunity to work with private and family business owners in this area of succession, exit, and transition planning. That's the time where I, probably 10 years ago, I befriended Michael Carter, the founder of BizEquity, just really when he was getting started and launched. And we just kind of became fast friends. Loved going to Philly to, just chat with him. And I have another friend over there, Adam Holt, who is the founder of Asset Map. So I had good reasons to, spend 3-4 days, a couple times a year in Philly. And with my experience, these guys would ask me questions, bounce ideas off me. What do you think of this? And I just became even more enamored with the BizEquity tool and began using it and talking and asking business owners, the silly question like, do you know the value of your business? 98 times out of 100, the answer is no, I have no idea. So that just kind of got me really, I would say, in bed with the BizEquity team. We still are huge BizEquity users today. very large. So we're very tickled with the BizEquity platform. And hats off to you and your team for all the enhancements that you've made recently, because we just published our first report on the new platform. My partner, Chris Goebel, and I were reviewing it, and we're like, wow, this is really, really slick. So very, very good improvements.
Well, thank you, Mark, for those kind words, and we're happy to have you, Chris. Like you said, since the early days with Mike over the past decade plus, you've kind of grown up with us, and
Yeah.
I've been along for the ride. So it means a lot for you to be a part of that journey in terms of servicing the backbone of the American economy and the business owner that you've worked with for decades, and for you to be one of the first to utilize the new enhancements to actually see where the rubber meets the road. So we love to hear that. Thank you for the kind words. And it's an exciting time too, like you said, just at the current moment in terms of the opportunity with the business owner. And I think you summed it up perfectly in terms of your journey and impressive career in terms of making that your main focus and growing the firm to where it's at today.
It's a challenge, though. The business market, as you know, Kevin, is a challenge. What seems to be, kind of a fundamental question: what's your business worth? Business owners are tough to wrestle, right? It's like catching a fish and throwing it on the deck of your boat. They're just always bouncing around, hard to maintain, get their attention. But when you start identifying the value and helping them grow the value, protect the value, those are very, very enjoyable conversations for me to have personally. I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping the owners, and you develop a very intimate and a very, very intimate business relationship on an accelerated basis, right? Because you know more about their business than probably their attorney and their accountant combined, right? Because you're seeing the whole picture, if you will.
Absolutely. No, and I think that's a great way to transition to, like you said, that question, which since those early days with Mike, you mentioned of, the simple question, how we were founded, what's your business worth, to still being, just as, if not more relevant today. Like 98% of business owners not knowing the answer to that question. So like you said, just based off your experience of sometimes it being a tougher relationship to maybe get started, but how fruitful it can be. Tell me about how, that conversation in terms of business owners understanding their value from your early days in the space to where it is now. Maybe just the lack of awareness that's been around it, the challenge there, and how you guys have been able to help them uncover that through the platform and just through those deeper conversations in general.
Yeah, so great question. I mean, oftentimes when I meet business owners, I think you and I have gotten to know each other. I'm fairly easy conversation, good at establishing rapport, relationships, and trust. As you get to meet business owners, you really find that they're very, very much, for the most part, not always, very technically competent in their field, whether it's, tool and die making, maybe, or it's computers. I mean, they start, it's kind of like the E-Myth. They start a business because they're really good at something, and everything else is kind of learned, right? So corporate finance, accounting, all the metrics, the KPIs are, if you can get them to let their guard down, you can really assist them in a strategic manner and helping them understand what their business is worth and why it is so important to their business and to themselves and their families. And I would also add to their communities, to know what these businesses are worth is just critical. So one of the questions that I'll often ask, and obviously you have to have enough trust and rapport. I said, well, do you know what your business is worth? And, as we said, more than 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, right? And we know the reasons why, because they've never had to know unless they're going through a marital divorce or a business divorce, or if it's estate planning or something. These are all the kind of the triggering events, if you will, that will cause someone to stop, take the time and spend the enormous amount of money that it does typically taken to value their business. But I fundamentally believe that, if you can pull out your phone and tell me what's in your 401k, and that might be worth a couple $100,000, and I'll say this to business owners, wouldn't it make sense to know what your multi-million dollar and your largest asset is worth, and whether or not you're maximizing the value of what that could be? I've always been in the financial services business, and I still am today. I'm very proud to be. But people will say, well, I already have a financial advisor, Kevin. And I'll ask the question, well, tell me, when you and your advisor speak about your business and what it's worth, how does that conversation go? And the business owner inevitably will say, well, we don't talk about my business. We focus on my IRA rollover. And so what's the value of that? I don't know, 600,000 or something. I said, that's just, he goes, I just chuckle at that. I said, I've always scratched my head because here's your business that's worth $6.5 million and you never talk about it. I said, I'm the financial advisor that talks to you about your largest asset. And they'll say, with pause, gee, that makes a lot of sense, right? I guess I should probably be talking to you. I mean, why are we worried about an asset that's worth 10% of the value of your business in that example? And once you can get them to see kind of the lack of logic in their own mind, they're like, maybe we should have a coffee. And that's really a lot of times how it starts.
Yeah, it's almost like planting that little seed,
Yeah.
in their head and letting it grow. And like you said, it all comes from the baseline of the relationship, the rapport, and nurturing that. And that way it just comes through naturally and organically. So,
Yeah, and harmlessly, right? And with a bit of, I've always had just a bit of humor, but it just cracks me up. You guys are all the same, I'll say, right? These business owners, they're all work. They'll borrow millions, they'll sign personally, but they have no bloody clue what their business is worth. And it just is so counterintuitive. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. So if I said, look, if we could spend an hour and a half and a few $1,000s, wouldn't it make sense to understand what your business is worth today? And wouldn't you agree that it would make sense that we should run through this exercise on an annual basis?
absolutely. And I think it goes back to one of the quotes that we like to say all the time and use is, like you said, working with a business owner, they're spending so much time working in the business that they're not working on it, right? Like
Yeah.
you said, so many hours, blood, sweat, and tears, and they know it inside and out with the expert. But in terms of what it's worth and improving that to make sure that they're in line to maximizing their life's work is, like you said, it starts with a simple conversation, but it often isn't the one that they're necessarily focused on, which is
Yep.
where
Yep. And
you guys come to the
it's
fold.
I think it's a bit of an art to get them to, as I said, I've always used the analogy like a boxer, right? You've got to get the owner who's constantly being assaulted by, just think about the last 2 years, by tariffs and taxes and, the media says business owners are greedy and blah, blah, blah. Well, I believe that business owners are the heroes of the American economy, and they should build statues for these men and women that have created jobs and risked their own capital. So if you can get them to feel like, hey, okay, this guy's here to help me, I'm here to advocate for you and assist you, then that relationship just skyrockets and you quickly become one of their most trusted advisors. And it really starts with a conversation about valuation of their largest asset and how to protect it and how to enhance it and grow it.
And like you said, you're that trust advisor. You're in their corner, like you said, when it seems
Yep.
like either everyone's against them or they're fighting such an uphill battle. Like it is, even just like you said, to create jobs and stimulate the economy and provide value to their clients. You're able to do so by being that beacon of trust and having their back. It's a fantastic point, like you said, in terms of valuation as a starting point. You mentioned the triggers as well, and that's sometimes what we'll often see when one of our users on the platform will run evaluation is often that moment, but what we see is often getting ahead of that and being able to use it as part of that holistic process, being more valuable to be able to prepare and then maximize that asset, like you said, instead of being reactive. So can you tell me a little bit about, like you said, the holistic process of being able to start diving into this years in advance to plan to maximize the asset compared to waiting for a trigger event that might kind of hinder it in the long term?
If you go back to, I mentioned the Exit Planning Institute and the whole valuation acceleration methodology that Scott and Chris Snyder have created. Prior to becoming a SEPA and really being made familiar with the valuation acceleration methodology, great phrase, by the way, we had kind of scoped out at Legacy Business Advisors a 5-stage process, which would begin with, but it aligns perfectly with the EPI platform, which is, identify value, protect value, identify, our game plan would be, what's your ideal transition plan, if you will? How much do you need to retire? So that incorporates the financial plan, the retirement income, the lifestyle that you're looking to generate. Most businesses, about 90% of the businesses have what I refer to as 35 to 40% of the value of their business is unrealized, right? Meaning that if your business today was worth $3 million, its value potential without selling another widget is probably closer to $4 million, right? And there's reasons, and you've now identified these levers, if you will, in your new platform that you can identify. Well, where's the low-hanging fruit? What is, causing me to not be at my maximum or close to my minimum? You're never going to hit 100% of your value potential, right? What are the areas that I need to work on my business, to use your phrase from earlier, in order to increase the value, right? It is that whole circle, right? And then it's always constantly, because we know that business owners, as I said, they're so dynamic. By and large, they're quite big picture. It's the same process every year. Here's where you were last year. What's the value of your business? Let's make sure that we protect it in case you get hit by a bus or there's a black swan moment. Let's make sure that we know what you need to retire on, the value of your potentials. Let's try to narrow that gap. And then when we start to, I think one of the better value propositions that we have is, a lot of these small to mid-sized businesses, and that's such a huge canal, if you will, or lane. I mean, I talked to a banker yesterday, and I said, she said, we're in the lower end of the middle market. I said, okay, well, that means different things to everybody, Kevin, right? She says, well, like 3 million to 500 million in revenue. And I said, geez, that's, those two ends have nothing in common with one another. But let's just say that we work typically businesses between 5 and 100 million, right? Now, the level of sophistication at 100 million or 75 or 80 million is much, much greater. I mean, you're going to have CFO, and you're going to have HR professionals, and you're going to have good legal counsel, good accounting. But there is a massive black hole between 3 million and 20 million, where these businesses have no advice, no advisors. Their accountants, by and large, are historians of what's happened in the past. Their lawyers are there to keep them out of trouble, but no one's talking to them about, am I on track for retirement? What's my business worth? Is it worth enough? What's my ideal succession path? Is it transition to insiders, third-party sale, right? Employee stock ownership plan. And we'll spend hours with our clients explaining how those work in layman's terms. And they're like, wow, I feel like I know, we're educating them and counseling them and helping them narrow the gap throughout the process.
It's such a great point, like you said, because we'll get asked that question all the time. Where does BizEquity fit? What parts of the market can you support? And it's good to know that we can support any end of that, right? We've had, some of the banks we partner with tell us that, with those formal appraisals on that larger end you mentioned in the hundreds of millions, we're coming in right with those formal appraisals, which gives us the confidence to know that we have the most accurate platform out there. And like you said, between a Wall Street level, closer to that end, or Main Street, we're going to be able to provide the resources and tools to execute on our mission. So, and to that point, like you said, especially when it might seem like the smaller end, 3 to 20 million, it might seem small relative to Wall Street, but think about the opportunity for the advisor and just in general of being able to increase the value there by a few $1,000,000, right? And what that means for the long-term play, changing the life of the small business owner, and then for the advisor there, just how incremental and lucrative, and just creating win-wins for all parties. So even though it might seem on the lower end, there's so much potential. And like you said, the lack of resources and the opportunity there is tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, I've become such a better advisor since I've been working with BizEquity. So there's another plug for you and your team. But if you said on average that the average percentage of EBITDA, relative to revenue is, it's, let's say 16 to 22% or something like that on a $3 million business, you're looking somewhere between $450,000 to $700,000 of EBITDA, right? Or cash flow. Well, that's a heck of a good client for a financial advisor if you're skilled in the business market. Now, if you're just out hunting and gathering assets, not a very good client because it's a totally illiquid situation, right? But there's tremendous amount of tax planning, which is retirement plans and cash balance plans and protection planning and all these things, and working with their accountant and their attorney. But you have to understand the language of business and the financial, a lot of accounting, to be able to speak the language and gain the other professionals in the room's respect and trust. And BizEquity has helped me do that.
Well, we appreciate that plug, Mark, and we're glad that we could be a part of that, like you said, and just enhancing you guys in terms of being able to tap more into that portion of the market, those conversations. But also, like you said, it's a learning experience for everyone, and it goes around in terms of us learning from you and from our clients in terms of how we can make those enhancements to continue to drive those conversations forward and then deeper, just to get even more in depth. Because, like you said, you move past employment advisor, you become that counselor. And there's so much of that
Correct.
emotional aspect past just the financials, where once you master those skills, like you said, of business and the understanding of it, to be able to dive deep,
Hmm.
it just becomes so much more intimate, like you said. So to touch on that and kind of go back to some of the earlier parts of our conversation, there's all those aspects, like you mentioned, in terms of the economy, the outlook, other external factors, and so much that goes into it from an emotional side. What can you tell me, or can you tell me a little bit more just about that side of things in terms of those conversations when you do get deeper with a client and what they share, and maybe some of the trends you've noticed over the past 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's not a short answer. I mean, a dynamic that seems to reappear time and time again is, business owners are, it's kind of like that. You're younger than I am, much younger than I am, but that scene in Star Wars where they go hyperspeed and just all the stars start coming at them. And that's kind of, I think that's what their typical day or month or week looks like, right? Giving them time to think, asking questions with purpose, such that I'll say, I'll ask them, I want you to think about what your ideal exit looks like. And I don't want you to answer me, over breakfast, but the next time you have a moment, you're driving, just think about, and it might begin with, well, what are my options? Well, here's your options. Here's how they work. And then they have time to ponder on, right? And what's really important to you? Is it money? And I would submit that for the majority of my clients, money is not the most important thing. A lot of these businessmen and women have tremendous lifestyles. I mean, they're not, I live in the Midwest. I mean, they're not, some of them have corporate jets, but they're living tremendous lives. Family's most important, legacy, their communities, their key people. And I see these time and time again, right? How can I take care of my family? How can I take care of my key people? Right? How do I make sure that this business survives beyond me? I've got all these employees. I feel responsible. I mean, they feel a tremendous, again, despite what the media would have you to believe that they're all greedy, sons of a gun. They're not, right? They're really, by and large, very giving, courageous individuals that need help. I'm just very fortunate to be able to ask these questions in such a way where they can feel safe and answer them and give them time, right? And understand that relationship, although it accelerates and it becomes very deep in a short period of time. When I say short period of time, it's, a couple of years. So if you're going into this marketplace, it's not going to be a 1 or 2 appointment transaction. It's years, but the clients that you have are lifelong clients in that regard.
I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, your clients are so lucky to have you and the team,
Right.
supporting them, like you said,
I'm
throughout
lucky to
that.
have them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and those relationships, having such a good mutual respect and deep relationship is, it's a beautiful thing. And like you said, it's not something that's built up over 1 to 2 meetings. Even think about our partnership, right? Decade plus known each other since you first connected with Mike, and you name dropped Adam as well. Asked about great guys over there. It builds up over time, where, like you said, you see the value of what we offer, and you really get to have a sense of who they are as people and their
Yeah.
community, what's important. And then, like you said, it's one of those things where it's a bond for life, and it's just such an intimate level past just high level EBITDA and revenue numbers. Where while we look at it every day and we maybe get caught up in it sometimes, being the valuation experts, like you said, it's the catalyst for so much more that comes beyond that, and
Sure.
that's really where the opportunity lies. That's where the beauty of it and the passion for our space really gets fueled. That's it.
Yeah, and you guys have got a great team. I mean, I've gotten to know Cal over the years, but Scott Gabehart, I've got him on my phone. If I ever get, out over my skis, which, happens a lot, particularly if you're working on larger companies, he's very good at, breaking it down for my team and I. He's willing to spend time with us, educating us, making us better, hopping on a call with a client, helping us defend evaluation. Because, I think the one thing we have seen, you ask the question, well, are there common threads, so to speak? But, doesn't every business owner think their business is worth more than it is? When you run the report and you say, geez, it's worth $1 million. Oh, my buddy sold his business for 11 times EBITDA, and I know mine's is bigger than that. They don't have any clue, right? What their business is worth, what their buddy's business is worth. 11 times. Who knows, right? So until you run the report, take them through the benchmarking. Here's how it works. Then I think they get a lot more serious about wanting to do some planning. It's kind of a major, I'm going to watch my language here, an aha moment, if you will, like, I thought my business was worth $3 million, not $2 million, right?
Yeah, Cal, Scott, I know they're going to appreciate the shout out. The guru, we call him, all his times. It's
the Wizard of Oz,
really,
the Wizard of Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. He's a big Cubs guy, as a White Sox guy. I don't hold it against him, but
how can you be a Cubs and a White Sox guy?
Well, he's a Cubs guy. I'm a White Sox guy.
Okay, yeah.
So given how much he's helped, and he works so close with our team, being on the client side, and how great of a guy he is, and how much he helps us, I won't hold the Cubs thing against him. But yeah, he's fantastic. And like you said, I think that's where every business is so unique, and that's the great part of BizEquity. So many great things, but the day to day, there's never a dull moment, whether you're working with a manufacturing company and the cases you see come across the desk, and you get to learn a lot about, like you said, such a crucial part of the American economy and what makes it all go round. So to that point, and I think that's some great insight there, just to kind of bring it full circle to what we talked about of that aha moment, and where the rubber meets the road. You have that conversation where we really help power that conversation forward, but the importance of making sure it's a holistic process. Something we touched on a little bit earlier, but the beauty of being able to have that moment earlier instead of when it's too late is that you and the team get to go to work, and especially with the updates we made to the platform on the KPI action plan, and being able to target it with the exit valuation, being able to go ahead and expand on that and give yourself that window to do what you guys do best and add that value. So maybe tell me a little bit more about that process in terms of making it holistic, getting ahead of it, as opposed to having that moment too late, and then there's a lot of money left on the table.
Yeah, so fair enough. So if we had a case, let's say on average at Succession Plus US, we have documented now that after 36 months, our average value enhancement for our clients has been 35%. Right, so meaning that if a business was valued at $3 million at the end of 3 years, we've increased the value on average by $1 million. And the question is, how do you do it? And now your new platform has identified, here's where I use the term because this is what our clients in the Midwest and our manufacturing clients, here's where you're leaking oil, right? And here's the top 5 or 6 areas that we need to address. And here's where the largest return on your investment of time and money is to fix these things. And as we're fixing them, your value is going up. So if we get into an engagement, we charge a monthly retainer. We can do a revaluation after a year, after 2 years, after 3 years. We'll show them, look, you spent $40,000 in fees. Now they're tax deductible. Your net cost is, call it 25 grand. And your value went up $1 million over the, so 3 times 25, you spent $75,000 to increase your asset by $1 million. And they're like, let's keep going. So these conversations extend because, again, this process and a tool like BizEquity and an exit planning process is oftentimes a business owner's ever sat with their lawyer, their accountant, their financial advisor, and guys like us and ladies like us all in the same room to talk about their goals, their aspirations at the same time with their entire team. So it really doesn't get any more holistic than in that, to answer your question.
Absolutely. I love it. And like you said, it seems like just such a no-brainer from a business owner standpoint with the ROI, that investment. While, there's a cost up front. It's one of those things where sometimes you have to spend a little money, invest a little bit to really see it take off. And like you said, with what you and the team have been able to do, leveraging us, and again in there, it's a no-brainer for anyone out there. So love to hear that, and hats off to you and the team.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. We enjoy it. We love what we do. So I have a question for you, Kevin.
Yeah.
You guys just came out. Did I read it correctly, or I might have the wrong phrase? But is it a private business index?
Yes, the PCI, the Private Company Index.
Private company index. I didn't know it was company or business, but I pinged Scott Gabehart, and I'm like, oh, tell me more. So how's that gonna work?
Yeah, so great question, and that's a project that Scott and the team been hard at work on for quite a bit now. And through our partnership with our parent company, American City Business Journals, just launching here to be able to provide essentially, kind of a real time, just like you'd see on the market, being able to have a pulse on every business and every sector around the United States in terms of being able to show in real time what valuations are looking like, what that looks like across all the top industries in the U.S.
Yeah,
So
I think it's going to be awesome. I think that's going to just drive, for the good professionals and good teams out there. I think it's going to drive even better and better conversations with our clients and prospects.
We're very excited about it, and like you said, being able to drive those conversations forward and identify those areas and the trends, and some we've seen too, just in terms of looking at the Google search trends, where business valuation searches over the past year skyrocketed. We talk about the silver tsunami. Everyone knows the stats. We touched about a few of them earlier. Like it's only going to keep on increasing, and then just being able to go ahead and find that target or a specific niche or the areas where you're going to be able to see that significant return and have the biggest impact is paramount. So that was really one of the main drivers behind it, to give you guys more tools there. And again, going back to the mission from the early days, with Mike and the founding of BizEquity, it's democratizing it and making sure that the Main Street business owner has that access, and you guys have access to see how everything is trending in real time, just like you'd see on the market every day.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Of course. Thank you, Mark. I'm sure we'll be connecting again soon, but this was fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time. I know hopefully you guys have some good weather coming up in the Midwest to get back on the course. I know you're
going to be in the 50s, but supposed to rain, but it's just been so cold here in Ohio. But nothing like you guys just had a major with that big nor'easter out east. So crazy winter. Everyone's ready for the April and the Masters, and we'll be off into the spring, right?
Absolutely. We have the PGA out here. I'll be there at Aronimink in Philly in May. We're super excited, part of the big U.S. Independence and America 250 celebration, having a lot of big events in the city. So hopefully, next time you're out here, you always have a home here at the BizEquity office. We can connect, hit the course, and whenever we're out in Ohio here soon, we'll definitely be able to do the same. And really appreciate you taking the time and all the team success here in terms of your growth and what you've been able to do to support the mission of the business owner and the backbone of the U.S. economy.
Great. Thank you, Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. It was a pleasure. We'll chat soon.
All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you.